I'm always doing here in Spain. So, how are you all? I hope you're all doing absolutely. Hi guys, I'm back again. Hopefully the stream will hold up this time. As I said, I'm sitting on a really bad internet connection here, so you never know how long this will last. So I'll just keep going as it does. Anyway, guys, so you can continue to ask your questions through the normal chat. I will try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. And if you really have a question that you want me to answer and you want to make sure that I see it, there is a super chat possibility as well, where if you enter that one, then I will definitely see whatever question you might have, and I will definitely answer them as well. But I'll do my absolute best. So, where are you all coming from? Tell me. Right, so let's see. Siva is here. Hi, Siva. Hi, Jack. Hi, Aftab. And first couple of questions. Let's see what we can come up with here. So, Sam 0898. Any tips for student pilots? Yeah, worked really hard. I mean, that might sound like a very obvious tips. Obviously, you're going to be working hard, but um, make sure that you speak to the people around you before you start your aviation training, and let them know that these are going to be some very very intense years for you studying wise. So you might not be able to be there for all social gatherings. You might be not seeing them as much as you would have done previously. So just make sure that all of your friends and your family is aware that you are going to have to focus 100% on your aviation training during the next couple of years, and that will be the best tip I have for you before you start your training. While you're in training, you will have ups and downs, just like everyone else. Everyone has training plateaus. Do not let them get you down. Make it in a hard place. Just maybe take some time off. Maybe take a weekend off to clear your head a little bit, and then get back into it with fresh and good spirit, because it is a lot of work, and you will require all of your attention to do it in a good way. So, Leon Gabardella, hi Captain. On which type of aircraft do you recommend to do the multi-engine instrument rating? It doesn't really matter. That's my answer. As long as you're flying a safe aircraft with two engines, it doesn't really matter what aircraft you're doing your multi-engine rating on. I did it on the Cessna 340, which is a fantastic aircraft. Two big turbocharged engines. I know a lot of people are doing it on Diamond aircraft nowadays because they're really effective and really cost effective for the flight schools to use. So, but the key here is that you just do it on whatever aircraft type that the school has, providing that it is safe and it has all the full instrumentation that you need and so on. It doesn't really matter what type of aircraft you do it on. Foxtrot 7, Mentor Pilot. When you have landed, but you go around, if spoilers are deployed when the toga is pressed, do spoilers disarm? Yes, they do. Basically, you can go around from a landing at any point unless you have taken reverses. If you have deployed the reverses, then you're committed to the landing. But prior to that point, if you would decide to go around, you press toga and you advance the thrust levels, the spoilers will come down automatically flush with the wings, and you can do the go around perfectly. Louis Corre, hey, greetings from Spain. That's greetings from Finland here. Adam Tarek, the plane you dream to fly is, I don't really know. The types that are out at the moment, there's no one that really stands out more than the other. I think it would be cool to fly the Dreamliner. Because I like the new technology. Same with the Airbus 350, but it's not like one of these wow aircrafts out there that one I really have to fly, like the Concorde, for example. But I'm sure within the next couple of years we will see some good developments in this area, and maybe there is a new aircraft type that comes up that I would really want to try. But as with I think most pilots out there, I would love to fly the Queen of the Skies, the Boeing 747. More questions here. So Magnus Teit, hello Peter. What is the difference between the Boeing and the Airbus philosophy? Yeah, so I haven't read up on the exact company philosophies here, but from a pilot point of view, you have the Boeing is more kind of old school. You have your stick and rudder, you have your yoke in front of you, the thrust levels of moving according to the way that they would if you were using the thrust levels manually. Basically, it's very old school, very pilot centered. But the Airbus is a bit more of a computer. It is more sophisticated. It has built the systems around the aircraft being able to stop the pilots from doing stupid things like overbanking or over maneuvering the aircraft. So, for example, one thing that I don't like myself, but I think you probably get used to, is the fact that the thrust levels are not moving. Even if your max takeoff thrust set, you just have them in one area, and if it's starting to reduce, then it doesn't really show. While in the Boeing, you will immediately see, just by looking at the thrust levels, you will see how they're moving, and from that you will get an instantaneous kind of readout of what the aircraft is doing. But I think, as with all the things that you're not used to, it will just take a little while, and then you get used to it, and then it's like you've never done anything else or seen anything else before. Adam Tarek, how many hours do you have? 100,000? No. I have a little over 10,000 hours at the moment. Most of them, bar 250, I think, is on the 737. Nick Jonas, how much does a 737 captain make in the US? Yeah, so when it comes to salary, I know I'm getting loads and loads of questions on this, guys. And the fact is that salaries vary a lot between different airlines and between different parts of the world. I haven't flown in the US, so I don't know exactly. I would say that on a 737, you would one of the majors if you're flying a 737, or for Southwest maybe. I don't have the exact figures, but count on as getting in as a first officer. You will be earning between 30 and 80,000 euros, so the equivalent in dollars. And from a captain, there will probably be between 60 and up to over 200,000 euros per year, depending on how long you've been in the company, depending on how much your company pays, and so on. But the differences are so big that it's impossible for me to sit here and say that this is how much you are going to earn. But those are kind of ballpark figures. Scott Bunting, are there many pilots with higher university degrees in, for example, mathematics, physics, and engineering? Yeah, there's quite a few, and especially if you're flying in the US, there's going to be most of the American majors require you to have some kind of a degree. And the pilots tend to be leaning towards the natural science degrees and towards engineering. So I would say that there's probably quite a few of them, especially in America, with higher degrees. Yes, in Europe, it's not as high of a requirement for higher degrees in order to get an airline job, which means that there are probably fewer of them here, but there's still quite a few. And I always tell people to, if you have a chance and if you have the possibility and the money to get a degree, it's always good, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you have one of those, at least you have something to fall back on in case your aviation dream wouldn't pan out the way that you expected it to. That's quite a mouthful of a nickname there. Hi Mentor, could you do a video about dual engine failure management? This scares the crap out of me most in aviation. Maybe You know what? If you guys get the Mentour Aviation app, it's still not out for iOS because iOS Apple has actually rejected the app, so we have to rebuild it and send it in again. But that's going to happen during this week. If you get that app, then you can send in requests for things that you think that I should do, and I can do a video on that. I can definitely do a video course on how to handle catastrophic situations like dual engine failure en route, dual engine failures on final, things like that. And just, there's not really any good instruction for how to deal with that because it's considered catastrophic. So you just deal with the best way possible. But it's definitely something I can do a course on if enough of you are interested in it. Hugo Russon, are you afraid of crashes? No, it's not like I'm walking around being afraid of crashing the aircraft, because then I think I would have a quite miserable life. But I am cautious and I am aware that major malfunctions can always happen. This is what we have to be. Every given day, your worst nightmare might become true. So you have to be kind of mentally prepared to, at a second's notice, be in a situation of an in-flight fire, for example, or a dual engine failure or something like that. So I'm not going around being afraid of it, but I am flying. More questions. So, Captain Jelte, did you start with gliding or with private sport pilot? No, actually, like I went straight into to my flight school when I was 17 years old. I started a government-sponsored program in Sweden, and from there I just went through my training, did my military service, did the last part of the training, and then straight into the airlines. And while I was starting in the airlines, I did fly a little bit of general aviation. I did a bit of fire surveillance, for example. I did a bit of towing, gliding towing, stuff like that, but very little, a very limited amount of time. Stefan Forsman, hi, do you have an electronic flight bag? No, actually I am very much old school. I have my old logbook here, which is manually written, and I fill that in as I go. I haven't gone over to electronic logbooks yet. However, I'm sure that I will do in the future, especially when I'm starting to run out of books here. File, where do you come from? I come from Sweden. I live in Spain, and I come from Sweden. More. Manuel de Kecker, why sometimes pilot reverse engines before touchdown? We don't, or we shouldn't. Okay, we should never, ever, ever get the reverses out. I'm guessing you're referring to that YouTube video that was out about a aircraft that shouldn't happen. The aircraft can extend the reverses at a just before touchdown. So it is the reversal locks which we normally have in order to stop us from using them. They do unlock just prior to touching down. So it is a physical possibility to do so. But of course, if you do the aircraft landing, the only thing I have is that hard conditions. It's very, very windy. Reverses and get the flight ever. The aircraft to land in a certain amount of crosswind. Okay, aircraft in different wind conditions, and then they try it out in extreme winds and they take it down. We cannot really guarantee that you can land safely with more wind than this. And then Boeing promulgates that as a limit in our manual, and it says that pilots cannot land with more crosswind than this. And generally, the crosswind limit is, for the Boeing 737s, about 32, 33 knots of crosswind, a little bit lower in wet directional control of wind. The crosswind is going to hit the tail and the aircraft. Or if there is to weather, also why the crosswind limits are lower on slippery runways. So that's the explanation in a nutshell, and that is the first super chat question. So guys, if you have more questions that you really want answered, you can go into the super chat and you can ask it over there. So, okay, boys, hund. More with greetings from Sweden. Hey, hey. Right. So, school subjects. Basically, what you need to have is you need to have mathematics and physics. Okay, you need to have that, which is why in Sweden, for example, you should probably go for a natural science program or samhällsvetenskaplig subjects. Apart you are good at. Physics and mathematics are something that you are going to need to have. On top of that, languages are always good in this sense between yeah, no, the license are the same. Okay, it's the courses that are different. So a CPL, a commercial pilot license, is a CPL, no matter if you've done it via the modular route or via the integrated route. But the integrated route is, in some cases, you can skip the PPL stage, so you can go through the integrated route and go straight for your CPL. While if you're doing it the modular route, you do have to go through the PPL stage, and you do have to get a little bit more hours, a little bit of route training before you go for your CPL. So the integrated route tends to be much shorter and much more expensive, and the modular route tends to require a bit more from you. You're going to have to kind of plan your schooling better. You have to look for which school to use, and it does take a little bit more hours, but it tends to be much cheaper to do. Andrew, let's see. All right, so we have another contributor here. Jawa, thank you very much. If you have a question, then please post it below in the super chat as well. Right, Mihidi Finn, hi mentor. Do you think that 110 hours per month roster will be stressful, and how many hours per month is it in your roster? Yeah, 110 hours per month that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. When I do my most busy month during the summer, I tend to reach 100 hours every 28 days, which is the legal maximum. Okay, but I only do that for maybe a few months every year. When in the summer, when there's a lot of people that want to fly, when the airline is going full speed ahead, then you might reach that. But seen over the whole year, you would never be close to that as an average, because you have 900 hours as an absolute maximum. If you take 900 hours divided by 12, maximum. Right, let's see. To Aftab Ahmad, how difficult is it to level up with a runway? Tell the exact procedure. Oh, so you mean actually lining up on the runway? Yeah, it's not very difficult. It's with everything. It's like riding a bike. When you know how to do it, it's not that difficult. Basically, taxiing the aircraft tends to be one of the trickiest parts of your upgrade training, because it takes a little getting used to the fact that you have the nose wheel behind you. So you're sitting in front of the nose wheel, and the nose wheel obviously is what steers the aircraft. And so what you have to do is you have to get used to how far over the center line you have to go, overshooting the center line, before you use the tiller and start turning up in order to end up exactly on the center line. So yeah, it is a little bit tricky. It takes a little bit of work. The exact procedure, my left full to give full tiller to the left or right, depending on how I'm lining it up. And as you do so, you also have to add a little bit of thrust, because if not, the aircraft is going to stop because of the extra drag that you will have during the turn. So it's a little bit tricky, but you can do it. George Comer, hi mentor. What is the most difficult or challenging airport you've had to land at? So this, I would say that the most challenging approach that I have been doing is an instrumental, a procedural approach into Toulon in France, and I've said that before, and that was because it's a circling to an offset runway, and also it is surrounded with hills, mountains. Nothing was working. So the VOR was not working properly. We had to do, I think it was an NDB circling to a non-reciprocal runway, which is quite challenging. And on top of that, there was loads of helicopters and VFR traffic around. So that Palermo can be a bit tricky as well if you're coming in on the VOR. apart from that, it tends to be more the circumstances than the actual runway, because an airport needs to be safe. So it is normally constructed to be quite safe. It's more the environmental circumstances around makes it really, really tricky on the day. More questions here. So Bart, have you ever had any dangerous situation while flying or taxiing the 787? Well, I don't fly the 787. I fly the 737. Dangerous situation while taxiing? No, not really. I mean, the most dangerous situations when taxiing occurs when either it's really slippery, and you haven't anticipated that the aircraft doesn't turn; it just goes straight ahead because it has the nose wheel, and the nose wheel doesn't have enough traction. So then you have to be ready to take the reverses and stop. But otherwise, it's runway incursions. All right, runway incursions can be very, very dangerous. I'm sure you've seen YouTube videos on this. Which is why it's really important that you do a proper taxi briefing before you start moving. And anytime you're taxiing and you are not sure exactly where you are, well, then you have to stop and you have to ask for assistance. Always do that. Never guess, I think it's this way. No, you stop the aircraft, set the parking brake if needed, call air traffic control and say, listen, we are here, can you give us, just verify our position? Or you sit down and you take up your taxi chart and you look, where are we? Here we are. Okay, good. Never ever guess. Okay, that's when becomes potentially dangerous when you're taxiing. Jabber Selmoni, hi Mentor, is it hard to get a job after you finish training? Yes, it is. It is not easy. Okay, it is right now. It's a fairly good time in the economy, so there's there's quite a lot of pilot opportunities out there, especially compared to when I started. But it's still going to be tricky. You're going to have to send out loads of resumes, so you're going to have to go to loads of interviews, and you will fail some of those interviews. So be mentally prepared that the hard work really starts when you're out of flight school. I mean, doing the flight training is hard in itself. There's a lot of work, but at least you know exactly what to do at every given point. But once you're out of flight training, that's when you're kind of on your own, and you're gonna have to be looking for jobs and taking initiatives and stuff like that. So yeah, it is quite tricky. Plane Spotter SC, what is LNAV and VNAV? Alright, so LNAV stands for lateral navigation and V is vertical navigation. So lateral navigation, LNAV is what helps the aircraft fly along a pre-programmed route. So that's the little magenta line that you're following on your navigation display. VNAV is a smart system that calculates climb performance. You can put in climb restrictions that it will abide by. It also calculates your descent path when you need to start descending, and at what speeds and what angles you need to keep. Also there you can put in restrictions. So both LNAV and VNAV are fairly are very, very effective and very modern systems, coupled to a very modern autopilot. Jake Sharp, do pilots still get paid if flights are cancelled? That depends on what kind of contract you're on. So me, for example, I am a permanent employee of my airline, which means that I have a basic salary, and the basic salary gets paid out whether I work or not. But then I have a flight supplement, and the flight supplement is only paid when I actually fly. So if I am flying in a flight, I will get this extra money. But if the flight would suddenly get cancelled for whatever reason, I don't. And then you have people who are contractors, and contractors, depending on what the contract says, are sometimes only paid by the hour they're flying. And if that's the contract that you're on and the flight gets cancelled, then you won't get paid for that day. After Ahmad, what is your biggest nightmare ever until now? The biggest nightmare I have en route is an in-flight fire. Okay, by far that is the worst thing that can happen, because it spreads very quickly. People start becoming sick very quickly. You need to get down reasonably quickly, because if the fire gets out of control, you might end up with all of us. Sorry. So yeah, in-flight fires are really, really bad. That's something that I don't wish on my worst enemy. Ace, how did you get started? Paid out of pocket? No, I was one of the lucky few who got my training paid by the Swedish government. There was 30 spots available in the country, and I applied for them, and I managed to get through together with 29 other really lucky candidates. So that's the way I went through it. I have paid for my own type rating, but the rest has been paid by the Swedish government, which is great. Ava Mendes, good to see you here. I hope you're doing fantastic. Zion Tyrone, welcome by SEA again soon. I'm studying there. It would be cool to meet you. Actually, I might. I am in contact with Scandinavian Aviation Academy to do some more projects together with them, since I have a contact there. I might actually come by SEA, and in the case, would it cost more, or should I go to a cheaper school? Does it matter? Oh, this is a tricky one. All right. So first of all, if I don't know the schools personally and I haven't checked them out, I'm never going to recommend any specific schools. However, the big schools in the UK, like CTC Aviation, like Oxford Aviation Academy, they have a good track record. Okay, they're good training organizations, and they produce a lot of good cadets. So they cost a lot of money. So you can probably get away with about half of the money that it costs and still get a decent training somewhere. And they do have good that the pilots applying for their positions have been properly trained, because it makes the airline's lives easier. So that means that you might actually have a bigger chance to get called for an interview if you go to one of these big schools. However, if that is worth the enormous price difference, that is a different story. So I'm not going to get into saying you should do or you shouldn't do, but these are the kind of things you should be thinking about when before making your decision. But there are plenty of good schools out there that cost less money than that as well. Plane Spotter SE, have you ever flown in stormy weather, crosswinds, etc.? Yeah, absolutely. Last time I flew, we had crosswind of a little over, just about max crosswind, about 30 knots. So it was the runway in Eindhoven is heading into 10 degrees, and we had winds of 250, 25, gusting 40. So yeah, it does get windy. Casper Bussan, can you please explain trim? Yeah, so the aircraft, basically there's a whole aerodynamic explanation that goes behind the idea of trim that I'm not going to go into here, but to keep it simple, the aircraft will be subjected to different forces. Okay, a perfect trimmed aircraft will have all the forces in balance. But as you accelerate an aircraft or decelerate an aircraft, or if the weight inside of the aircraft shifts, the amount of input that you need to have on your yoke, either forward, backward, or sideways, is going to be different. So as you accelerate, you would have to continuously start pushing the yoke forward. And the same as you're decelerating, you're going to need a higher and higher pitch angle to maintain the same altitude, which means you'll need more and more back pressure. Now, instead of sitting there and actually applying that back pressure, you can use a trim rudder with a little trim tab, or in the case of the 737, the whole elevator, moving a little bit in order to take away those forces. So you can sit with pretty much the same force without having to strain your muscles at different speeds. Okay, so that's what the trims are doing. They're trimming away excessive manual forces, and you should always fly the aircraft in trim. So, more questions. There's still some questions popping up on the super chat here. If you guys are paying for the super chat, then you should be asking questions there, because I see them. They're popping up here, just in front of my nose, basically. Simon McReevy, always wondered, how do you know when you have cleared the runway? Is it when the pilot crosses the cat to hold, or do you have to guess when the tail has crossed it? Well, you should be completely clear. So the aircraft should be completely clear, which means that you should have crossed the holding point going off, and then wait a little bit if you have a really big aircraft, so that you're sure that the whole aircraft has exited the runway before you're clear of the runway. When are you, Emil Invenius, when are you flying next time? Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm in the simulator now again, which I probably will be for the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping to be back in the in the aircraft very soon, but at the moment I don't really know exactly. Plane spotter, I see. How often do you have simulator training? Yeah, like you train personally when you're in the sim flying yourself. You do it twice a year. So during the summer, we only do an OPC, an operator proficiency check, which is just a check, no training. But well, no training, I shouldn't say that. The check, and then there is some training involved in that day. So you do your check, and then you have a bit of training, and then during the winter month, this is in my airline, obviously, we have one entire training day and then 1 day of check. So there's quite a lot of sim training, at least twice a year. If you're asking how often I'm in the sim, at the moment it's pretty much non-stop. Normally it's 1 week out of 3. Oh, sorry, 1 week out of 4. Sammy, H Potato, Mentor frequencies. 1215 is never any other frequency than the emergency frequency. And guys, by the way, those of you who have noticed, I have just released a new video. I just did it now. The small 5 that is causing some quite big problems actually. So please, if you guys are actively flying now, do not use 1215 to fool around with your friends or to talk about hockey scores or whatever it might be. More questions, guys. Aircraft, you have the elevator like that to go into your PP 899 gamer mentor. And I send right, guys, if you have any more questions, then please start. I'm going to start rounding this up now and go out and enjoy a little bit of time with my wife. But I'll take a few more questions before I go. Okay, so it seems like the internet is starting to give up. All right, guys. So it seems like my internet connection is starting to give up. So I'm just going to take, maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'll call it a night. Are all the cadets common or rare? Yeah, so all the cadets are a bit more rare. Okay, there are they still exist, but there are not too many of them. They that probably has to do with the fact that the older you get, the more complicated a big life change, that's in change of career, becomes. The older cadets that I have been dealing with have all been doing fine. So, but yeah, they're a little bit rare. What's the max age to start a career in aviation? Yeah, so there's no really max age. There might be some airlines that have some upper age limits. I know Scandinavian Aviation Academy said that they were careful with people that were over 35. But I have spoken to people who started when they were 50. So, there's no set max age. However, the older you get, the more complicated it will probably be to change your life. Mike Aviation, how do you rate London Stansted as an airport in terms of facilities available to pilots and training pilots? London Stansted is extremely busy. Okay, so the ATC, the air traffic control, is absolutely fantastic, second to none, I would say. The runways and stuff works very well. Ground handling can be a little bit so and so at times because they're very shortly staffed. From training perspective, I don't think that it's a good training runway because there's so much heavy traffic coming into there. When are you going to do the live podcast with an AME? Yeah, I'm still in the planning, but it takes quite a bit of planning for me to get myself to Sweden, where I'm planning to do it and things. So it's definitely on my to-do list, and you will know well in advance when I plan to do that. And guys, as well, if I'm going to mention that before I go, if you guys want to support the channel and the work I do and help me, for example, to get to Sweden, to get this live cast with the AME, I have my Patreon page. Go in and check it out, www.patreon.com/mentorpilot, where you can become part of my crew and both support the channel financially, but also you'll get to see all my videos before everyone else. You get to give some input on them, and things like that. So check out my Patreon page if you have a chance, because I really appreciate the help I get from all of my patrons on there. So I think this is my last question. Okay, like Hura, I would like to your opinion too, Mentor. Are low-cost airlines more risky for my career? No. Low-cost airlines are an excellent way of getting your career started. I have been working for a low-cost airline my entire career, and I am really happy where I am. They normally fly young fleets, well maintained, and as long as you know what you're getting, they're normally very open with what you will get and what you won't get. Then I don't see any kind of problems with working for a low-cost airline whatsoever. Guys, I'm going to call that a night. So once again, thank you very much for being here and interacting. And I'm just going to see first, I'm just going to go into my Mentour Aviation app here to see if there's any that are being posted by the users of the application. I promise to take up a few questions from there as well. So there are a few here. There's no specific questions because they've all been answered. Sorry, been asked here in the chat. But I do have a chat function in the Mentour Aviation app, so you can go in there. If you have Android, you can get the app. You can go into the chat and talk to other people. I want to try to make this into a community where we can help each other out, but you guys can go and ask your questions, and maybe there are other people in there that can answer them for you. So it's completely free to download, and it will be out from iOS as soon as we have rewritten the app so that Apple are happy with it. But for now, I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic as always. Take care of each other, take care of your families and your friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.